I'm Sean, I'm our director, and I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Kim Olszewski.
Hi, everybody. I jumped the gun and I said hitting record early after his nice introduction. So thank you, Sean. Welcome, everybody. I am the Senior Associate Dean at the Briner School of Nursing. And tonight we're going to talk more about the baccalaureate side of the program, but I will mention a little bit about the associate program as well, just to let you know some of the options that we have at the Briner School of Nursing. So Sean, I'll have you advance. So I get this question a lot. I get the question on, what degree do I need to be a nurse? So I'm going to take it back down to basics just a little bit. With nursing, you can be a registered nurse really in 2 years or 4 years. The 2-year program is the associate program, and it's a 2-year program which allows you to sit for the NCLEX, which is the State Board of Nursing exam to become a registered nurse. And many of those students will continue on as a registered nurse with an associate degree and later get what they call the RN to BSN track, where they proceed on to get the baccalaureate requirements to becoming a BSN prepared nurse. So you can become a nurse in 2 years, but why we're here tonight, and we do have an associate program, by the way, at Commonwealth, but why we're here tonight is to talk more about the baccalaureate program. Baccalaureate program is one of the flagship programs at Commonwealth University. We're very proud of that program. It's one of the largest programs that we have. And when we went through integration, it made us even larger. And with integration, you saw the 3 logos on the front screen there. We do have the baccalaureate program at our Mansfield campus, which is to the north. And then we have at the Bloomsburg campus, which is more in the central part of the state. So that BSN program is a 4-year program, and essentially it's a direct admit. You're admitted right into the program, and how it's really structured, and I'm going to talk more about the courses in a couple slides, but how it's really structured is your first year is a lot of the gen eds, a lot of the sciences. Nursing, I'll tell you, is very prescriptive. We tell you kind of what courses you need and when you need to take them, because one course is a prerequisite to the next. So your first year is really getting your feet wet with the sciences, all the things that are going to set you up for success as a nurse when you start the nursing courses in your sophomore year or your second year of the program. Second year of the program is very foundational, and we get you kind of thinking about the nursing process. We get you working with patients for the first time. We kick things off with what we call a white coat ceremony, which is a really prestigious time in your education when you're coming into nursing, because you put your nice fresh white coat on and you walk across that stage, and that's what we call that entranceway really into the clinical practice. That's when you start working with patients. And then moving into your junior year, things get a little heavier. You're focused on some specialty areas. You're focused on pediatrics, maternal child, and then you start doing some really pretty intense medical surgical type rotations, followed by your 4th year, which is your last year with us, and we do some population health. We have you out in the community doing things perhaps in the prison setting and community health, school settings. You do some psych mental health, and then you do some what we call critical care or ICU nursing, which gets you ready before you walk out the door. And we give you this one last course called leadership, and how you take all what you learned to move on to be a real nursing leader when you go out into the workforce. So very quick synopsis of the 2-year versus 4-year program. So Sean, I'll have you advance. So I just mentioned a lot of these courses, and I tried to list them all out here. And you'll see there's a lot. These are just some of the required courses that you have to take within our program. You'll see up at the top there are some of the first-year courses: lifespan psychology, anatomy and physiology, statistics, chemistry. Those are all foundational courses that you as a nurse or an up-and-coming nurse need to really have that understanding as you move into those next courses, where you see essentials in professional nursing, foundations, health assessment. We have pathophysiology and pharmacology, so learning about the different disease processes and how we take care of them with medication. That's a change in our new curriculum, and I'll talk about what I mean by new curriculum here in just a minute. But essentially, it's a course that we spread out over 2 semesters. So we take each of the body systems and we learn about the disease process. And then we learn about, again, as I mentioned, how to treat them. So perhaps, heart disease or hypertension. We learn about the disease and how that works and affects your body. And then we learn how to manage it with medication. We do research. We tell you how research is important, especially in the day and age of AI and how we're using all these databases to pull in information. We're not telling you how to use AI to replace you in the healthcare field, but we're telling you it's a tool. And that tool is used to make some what we call evidence-based decisions, and to make sure when you're out in practice, you're making good decisions based on the current literature. I mentioned the specialty areas: obstetrics, pediatrics, population health, mental health, and then finally, as I mentioned, leadership and how to be a true leader within the profession of nursing. So before we hop on to the next slide, you heard me just mention new curriculum. When we switched and integrated to Commonwealth University, the 3 campuses, Lock Haven, Mansfield, and Bloomsburg, all had different programs, all had different curriculums. And with integration, we aligned all of our curriculums that we can offer these wonderful programs now very seamlessly with one curriculum across multiple campuses. So while, what we're here tonight to talk about is the baccalaureate program. And Mansfield had a long-standing, and Sean might have the history of how many years the Mansfield nursing program's been around, but just an outstanding program to our north, as I mentioned, in the northern part, kind of straddling the New York border up in Sayre. And we'll talk a little more about that program too. But they had their own program and curriculum, and Bloomsburg had their own baccalaureate curriculum, which has been around now 40 plus years. And so the faculty, when they joined together, it was the time where they had a blank piece of paper and they could write the brand new curriculum, meeting the new AACN standards, which is the standards that we follow, standards of practice, and come up with one unified curriculum. And the unified curriculum is a competency-based curriculum. And what that means is, along the way in your journey of becoming a nurse, we expect you to do certain competencies, whether, I mentioned blood pressure. It might be taking a blood pressure. We teach you how to take a blood pressure in health assessment. But now you're going to be taking blood pressures over those next 3 years, but now you got to be proficient, and we need to make sure before you walk out the door, you're proficient in that skill. So there's multiple skills that we make sure that you get introduced to it, and we make you become very proficient by the time you leave our program. So when you're applying to our program at the Briner School of Nursing for a BSN, we have the very same opportunity at Mansfield campus as we do with the Bloomsburg campus. So, just when you're thinking about which campus do I choose, there is certainly, you have both options, and both options afford you the same curriculum and the same kind of pathway to getting to be a baccalaureate nurse. So with that, Sean, I'll have you advance to the next slide. So as I mentioned, our curriculum is lined and competency based. And what that means is, we have you practice skills, we have you practice skills again, and then we have you make sure that you're proficient. And so the skills demonstrations are just so very important when you get out. So you'll see there's the word simulation. And you can see there the girl in the picture is actually practicing an IV on a mannequin. That's not a real arm, that's a mannequin arm. So it's much easier to practice and get things right before you go and work with a patient. And that's what our clinical simulation does. It does not replace going into a clinical setting. It helps you practice your skills and get proficient in your skills in a safe setting where we can observe you and we can make recommendations, and you can practice and practice, and then you move out and apply them into the clinical world. So we do a nice blend of clinical simulation versus clinical in a hospital setting or an outpatient setting, or as I mentioned, we go into prisons, schools, all types of places that have nurses. And then finally, there's externships and internships. We work with a lot of clinical partners. We're blessed at Commonwealth that we sit with a nice footprint among pretty much, I'll say 7 large clinical partners. Some of you, if you're local in the area, I'm sitting right now in Lewisburg, Pennsylvania, so I'm kind of right in the middle of the triangle where our campuses lie, but our footprint has us, with big healthcare systems like Guthrie Medical Center, up to the north, up in Sayre, PA, where Mansfield's at. We have Geisinger Health System down here in the central and northeast part of the region. To our west, we have Mount Nittany, UPMC, Penn Highlands. We have Lehigh Valley Health Network to our east. We have St. Luke's to our east. We have Danville State Hospital. We are just so blessed with so many clinical partners and such a great experience for our students. And they all work very closely with us. So we try and get very good experiences for our students. And as I mentioned, not just in the clinical setting, we augment with clinical simulation. Bloomsburg campus, if you're coming to Bloomsburg or interested in Bloomsburg, I will tell you we're building a phenomenal sim center. The sim center will be opening this fall. It has been probably 5 years in the making that we've been talking about this. The last 3 years we've been in temporary housing and doing sim where we are now, but it'll be just unbelievable how much simulation technology that's being placed into Bloomsburg. And not to be, left behind, Mansfield has the same sim center, but they even have it better because they have it both on Mansfield campus and at Sayre. Their curriculum is split. The first 2 years are on the Mansfield campus, and then years 3 and 4, it is actually up in Guthrie in Sayre, PA. And the beauty of being up there on campus at Guthrie is the fact that we get to do what they call a lot more interprofessional education because they're a teaching hospital. So there's residents there. We have the respiratory therapy program there. We have medical imaging there. So there's a lot of opportunity while they're on that campus for years 3 and 4 that they get to spend doing a lot of interprofessional work. And the other campuses do as well, but I think because they're living there for those 2 years, that really, I think, steps up the interprofessional education. So we'll move to the next slide, please. I talked a lot about education, but we also want to talk about some fun and some exciting things that we do on the campuses as well. We encourage our students to be involved in the community, to be involved with organizations. We try and do everything from blood pressure clinics to they did Valentine cards for the shut-ins. They've gone out and done manicures and pedicures and things with the aging facilities. They work with local organizations for food drives. There's a lot with food insecurity we do. So our students are out doing a tremendous amount of community work while they're with us. So there's an honor society. Sigma Theta Tau is the Nursing Honor Society. We are affiliated with that. On the Bloomsburg and Lock Haven campuses, we do have student nurse associations on all of our campuses. We have the Bloomsburg Nurses Christian Fellowship, which is a focus group that is, I don't believe on the other campuses. I think it's just at Bloomsburg. We have committees that we involve students in. We want them to be part of what we call our departmental governance. So if we're making decisions on, I don't know, I'm trying to think of a good example of what we could say, but when we talk to them about curriculum and simulation, we always take student feedback and faculty feedback for that matter on how to better improve things. So we do involve our students within our committee work. We have ASIG, which is focused on a special interest group for the aging. That's on our Bloomsburg campus. I mentioned the nurses associations. We're just talking about BSN really right now, but the Lock Haven campus for the ASN also is very active within their community. In fact, I think they're doing a blood drive here maybe this week or next week on the Lewisburg Lock Haven campus. So again, we encourage our students to get really involved and in student government. It's really important as they grow as leaders. So we encourage that. Next slide, please. What I can promise you is you will have no problems finding a job at the end of this 4 years with us. Our nurses are courted, I will tell you, our students, pretty much from the day they walk in the door. We have I mentioned a lot of these big clinical partners that we work with, they will come on site and they will talk to our students and say, you know what, I know you're only a junior, you have one more year to go, but boy, we got this internship, that you can come work for us in the summer. And oh, by the way, we're going to give you a $20,000, sign-on bonus to put towards your education. There are so many offers out there right now. It is just a tremendous time to be coming into the healthcare field. So our students are 100% placed. You can see there where it says the growth from 2021 to 2031. One of the Becker's reports that I've heard Geisinger Medical Center cite is Pennsylvania is going to be leading the nursing shortage in the year 2026. So, every institution is looking for nurses and they have people retiring. And it is just a tremendous time to be in healthcare. Not only is it that they need nurses, but they need nurses in these specialty areas, and they'll work with you. So if you have a passion, I had someone reach out to me just the other day and say, boy, my passion, I want to be a psychiatric registered nurse. So I said to them, we make you a registered nurse. We give you the education to walk out that door and be a nurse in 4 years. The beauty of that is we give you all these experiences while you're with us for you to decide where's the best fit for me. So I'll interject with a quick personal story here. I like to do that when I talk. When I finished my 4 years, I went to a 4-year college, and got my bachelor's degree right out of high school. I came out of there. I had one of those nursing internships between my junior and senior year. And I was determined I was going to be a labor and delivery nurse. I loved obstetrics. That's where I wanted to be. Lo and behold, that was my first job. Loved it. I decided it was time to go back to school. I wanted a master's. I was only there for a year, but they didn't have a master's in that program. So I needed to make a career switch and say, oh, I want to do something different. I needed some extra money. I wanted to go back to grad school, and it wasn't online at the time. It was going to school. And I got into this field called occupational medicine. I was working in a plant and I thought, wow, this is great. I never knew this even existed. 34 years later, I'm still an occupational health nurse. I've been an occupational health nurse. It'll be 34 years in May. And it goes to show you can get this experience somewhere and it takes you down a completely different path. And nursing is such a versatile degree. You can work in a clinic, you can work online and be case manager, you can do telemedicine, you can be out in a home, you can be, an administrator someday, you can be a senior associate dean like I am. I never would have thought that's where my path would take. So I'm here to tell you, it's an exciting time to be in healthcare. It's an exciting time to be a nurse. And there's a lot of great opportunities, I think, coming down the pike with AI and everything that's going on with innovation. I'm real anxious to hear where all of you are in the next 25, 35 years of your career, because I think it'll be unbelievable where we are. So I'm talking a lot now, Sean. I think we're out of slides. I don't know if we have any more left. So after you finish that 4-year degree, you can stay with us. We'd love to have you. That's right where I went. I'm a graduate of Bloomsburg University's Master's in Nurse Practitioner program. We can get you to that next level of your career. So you can see a whole load of master's programs. We can talk to you more about that one-on-one tonight. We're here to talk about undergrad, but this is just to plant the seed where you can think about where that career might take you. We can get you from a 2-year degree, a 4-year degree, all the way through to a doctoral degree at Commonwealth University. So again, we want to see you get through those first 4 years, and then we'll talk to you about the next. But just so you have an idea, these are some of the great opportunities that lie ahead. And they're all online, by the way, except our nurse anesthesia program, which is not. The rest of those programs are completely online. So it's a great way to work and get a degree. So I'm going to turn it over to Sean. I did plenty of talking. He can talk to you now about the admission side, and then I think we'll have time for some questions.
Thanks, Tim. Hi, everybody. So the application process for any of our programs at Commonwealth U is pretty simple. One thing that I love to make sure I let students know as they're applying is we're not a part of the common application. I know there's a lot of folks that know and hear of that, and it's a nationwide application that a lot of universities use. We have our own separate application that you can access right through our website at commonwealthu.edu. So it's an online application. It'll take you about 10 to 15 minutes maximum to fill it out. And when you fill it out, you can actually apply to multiple campuses on the same application. You don't have to fill out separate applications for Mansfield, Lock Haven, or Bloomsburg. You can fill out an application for all three programs if you would like to. In terms of getting that sent into us, you'll want to submit that with your application fee of $35. If you attend one of our open houses or one of our other campus events like a major showcase day, we'll waive that $35 application fee for you. If you have some type of financial hardship and are unable to pay that as well, you can notify me directly and we can talk about waiving that application fee for you too. What we'll need is official high school transcripts or college transcripts from you for any of our college programs here. So if you're applying, get us a copy of your official high school transcripts from your school counseling office. Just request that they send them over to us. They can send them to a number of different places. I'm actually going to throw in the chat one of the emails that you can use, which is just transcripts@commonwealthu.edu. And then one of my colleagues will pick that up and add it to your application. Outside of that, we don't require SATs or ACTs anymore. That is a waive for our university. However, if you do have them, feel free to submit them. We can review you with those or without. It's up to you on what you want to submit for that. But it's a pretty simple process. It takes typically about 7 to 14 business days for us to get you a decision. When you do create an application, it's going to create a application portal page where you're going to have access to continue to return, to submit any type of documentation you want, like the transcripts or maybe a letter of recommendation that you have. We don't require those, but you can certainly submit them. And then you can also see the status of your application through that portal page. That's going to be your go-to spot to kind of see all the next steps that you're going to receive from us, whether it's going to be where your application is, whether it's you've been admitted, how do I pay my admission deposit? After I pay that, what's my next steps checklist? Do I need to sign up for orientation? Do I need to make sure that I'm getting my financial aid in line? These are all the things that that portal is going to support you with. So make sure you're going back to that and returning to that. And that's really kind of the end of our overall presentation. We want to open up the floor for all of you to ask us some questions. Feel free to raise your hand. I can unmute you if you prefer that. You can put the question in the chat, or you can use the Q&A feature. It's up to you. I'm monitoring both. And it could be a question for either one of us, whether it's more nursing specific or if it's something related to the admission process. All right. We got one from Courtney Kim. It says, I heard Mansfield and Bloomsburg have merged some of their nursing classes and they may be online because of that. What classes may be online and how many nursing classes may someone take?
Well, I'll start with the first question. So the first question is about being online. A lot of the gen eds, I'll be honest with you, are offered in an online format, like communication and some of those courses. The labs, anything associated with a lab like A&P or chemistry, will be in person. And from a nursing perspective, you're correct. We joined the same curriculum, as I mentioned. We are exploring an opportunity of we're dividing into like each class is divided into cohorts, and we're exploring the option of what we call a multi-classroom. And it's not online. It is synchronous. The faculty will either be standing in Mansfield or standing in Bloomsburg, and everybody will be in a classroom, and there will be a faculty on each side, but it's a way to join one classroom, and like I said, to make a larger cohort. So we're not going to fully online. There's no intent for that. We're exploring what they call, like I said, multi-classroom, and it's essentially a Zoom room, and that would just be not for every class. We're just going to trial it with one small group to see how that looks. But none of the nursing courses, all the clinicals, everything are completely face-to-face. And I forget what the other question was. What was the
Second part of that, Kim, was about how many nursing classes may someone take?
I'm not sure I understand that. It's 120 credits. Essentially, if you go on the website, you'll see the degree map. The degree map will show you kind of, as I mentioned, nursing, pretty much we tell you what courses you need to take. You do have options when it comes to, say, the arts, like music and things like that. But the sciences, we pretty much tell you what course to take and when, and they need to be in that order because one course is a prereq to the next. So, for example, in nursing, we offer Adult Health 1, which is a med surg course in the fall of your your junior year. And for example, if you would not successfully pass that course, you would need to repeat it before you could move on to the next nursing course. It's what we call progression within the program. So nursing courses, you take them all, you have the opportunity to take them twice. I mean, that if that's your question there, but everything is pretty much sequential. And if you look at the degree map, that's exactly, the order you're going to be taking the nursing courses.
Yeah, quite a few. There's another one that ties into that one from Emma in the chat. She asked, when you say offered online, does that mean that that is the only option for that class?
Gen Eds, what we call general education, which are going to be your larger classes, because that means it's a requirement for everybody on campus. General education, whether you're a business major, what have you, you have to take so many Gen Eds in each discipline of the Gen Ed, kind of population to meet that requirement. That's what separates really the associate program from the baccalaureate program, the Gen Ed component. The associate program, for example, is a 60 credit. It's actually 62 credit, our program, but it's 62 credit program versus the baccalaureate, which is 120. So the larger classes, some are offered online, some are offered what we call hybrid, which means part of your time's in class and part of your time's online. And then some are offered, traditional, they're face-to-face, what we call. So there's a mix. Nursing, we are not online. We are a face-to-face campus. As I mentioned, we are exploring the use of what they call a multi-classroom, which is synchronous, just like we're talking right now. Sean's at his location, I'm at mine. It would be considered like two classrooms, if you will. But it would be synchronous. The faculty would be together. All of the nursing courses, again, are face-to-face classes. We're just exploring that multi-classroom with the new curriculum to see if that's a viable option. So hopefully that answers your question. But none of the nursing are fully online.
Next question, Kim, is, are there study abroad programs specifically designed for nursing students?
Not specific, but I mentioned the words interprofessional education. The health sciences, we're affiliated, we're in the College of Health and Science and Technology. And they do sponsor a trip, I know, once a year over winter break. They go to Jamaica, and we take a different, kind of subset of healthcare specialties to go to a community within Jamaica, and they do dental care, and they're doing health education and blood pressure clinics. So nurses have been involved with that. We do not have a formal study abroad at this time. There's certainly interest as we've been developing our new curriculum. We talked about that, but at this time, we don't have a formal study abroad. I see something about athletics. Absolutely. We have nurses that are in athletics. We have nurses that are in the military in ROTC. We have nurses in a variety of different organizations, but we have we work very closely, as a matter of fact, with the athletic department to make sure that our student athletes are successful both in the classroom and in their athletic field. Dr. McFarland, who is the athletic director, he will work very closely with making sure, the nurses have what they need. In fact, last year, I mentioned white coat ceremony. We had a bunch of nurses that were athletes that missed that ceremony. We held a special ceremony for just the athletes because they had some special event. So we do have a lot of athletes within nursing.
There's a question here about the application deadline. Julia, the application deadline, there really isn't one. So if you're applying for fall 26, our application for admission will open up in July. You typically would like to open it up right after the Independence Day holiday. You can start applying then, and we'll start reviewing applications pretty much after the Labor Day holiday for all of our programs. And we admit on a rolling basis. So meaning once you submit your application and get us official transcripts, As soon as we get past that Labor Day holiday, we'll start reviewing applications for admission. So there isn't a specific hard deadline. So I always tell students the earlier you apply, the better off you'll be in terms of being able to review when we start reviewing all of our applications. We have another one about typically how big are the class sizes, Kim?
We went through the new curriculum and we looked very closely at, and I'm going to speak to just the nursing specific classes. The gen eds are going to vary, I'll be quite honest, depending on how they're offered and what the course is. And there's certain guidelines for how many people you can have in a lab. But for nursing, we are set at the number of 1 to 60 faculty to student ratio in the classroom, which we call didactic. And in the clinical setting, it is 1 to 10. And the clinical setting may be a combination of simulation, as I mentioned, or in person, but the ratio that for your clinical instruction is 1 to 10.
Will all the clinicals take place on campus? If the clinicals are not on campus, will I need to have a car to commute, or is transportation provided to and from the clinical sites?
Great question. Simulation will be either on Mansfield campus proper or Bloomsburg campus proper. And again, that'll be part of your education, but you will be going out to clinical sites. And we do have students that carpool. If you get in the same clinical section, they do that a lot for many reasons. They talk about, getting ready for their day and it's a support system, but they also, they'll travel together. Bloomsburg campus largely uses Geisinger as their clinical partners. We use Evangelical, it's WellSpan now, Evangelical WellSpan. In Lewisburg, we use them. We use UPMC to our north in Williamsport. They also have sites in Muncie and Lock Haven. We've used them. Lehigh Valley is to our east, as I mentioned, of Bloomsburg. You will never be more than an hour away from a clinical site, and we try really hard to keep you close. To our north in Mansfield, the first 2 years, they use some nursing homes that are local to the Mansfield campus. They also use UPMC down in Williamsport. And then, as I mentioned, years 3 and 4, it's over at Guthrie. And you're at Robert Packer Hospital for the majority of your clinicals, but then you do some community health or population health where you may go out, to a school district or a community site and meet the objectives for that course. So you will be going to clinical sites, but we found that students certainly carpool, and that, that's a great networking that you can do.
So on the website, there is a sample degree map based on the 23-24 academic catalog for BSN. Is that the degree map still current, or has it been updated? Also, are there any upcoming changes to the BSN program that students should be aware of?
I do know the faculty were mentioning there's a change coming to one of the communication studies listed on there. I believe the course number is going to change. That is a small detail because they're accepting like 3 options for the communication studies. And I just heard from one of the faculty today that'll be changing for the freshman year, but it just means that we're giving you more options versus what's on there. Nothing else is changing. Everything else in the degree map is set. There is some flexibility. We do have students that take some gen eds, more so near the end of their time and wait till their senior year. We don't like you to do that. We like you to take them more on the front end. It lightens your load by the time you get to more your senior year and you can focus on just the nursing courses. But there's a great deal of flexibility. And one thing else I'll add, if there's, we have a lot of students that take minors, whether it's a minor in a language, we have minors in business, we have minors, and because some students will come to us with a lot of, early college credits, and they've gotten credits under their belt. We also have the opportunity, because we're one of the PASHE part of the PASHE system for the whole state, that we do what they call course share. So there may be a course that you would love to take in digital forensics or whatever the case may be, but maybe Bloomsburg or Mansfield doesn't have that being offered this semester, or you want to pick something else up. You can take that at one of our sister schools, at Slippery Rock, Westchester, any of the PASHE schools, and it's the same price and it transfers right into your transcript as a grade. We make that pretty easy for you. So I'm digressing a little bit from the question, but just so you know, there's a lot of options when it comes to taking courses. If there's something you want to take early and it's not where you want it to be, we have options through course sharing, but the degree map should be correct other than comm studies.
Do students get a say in where they are placed for clinical rotations?
We allow you to pick your clinical section, which is day of the week, and typically the professor. We are dependent upon, we are a large program. I'll be quite honest with you. We are a large program. And we need to request clinical sites from all of our clinical partners to make sure that it meets our needs and it meets your needs to make sure you're getting the objectives completed for the course. So we're just one university in a big footprint. We have, other universities that also are using those clinical sites for their clinical. So we make the request. They come back to us and tell us what floors, what days of the week, what hours. And then when you go to schedule your classes, you'll be able to see what day of the week and what times. Many times we'll know what clinical site that clinical group lines up with, but sometimes we don't. So you'll be able to pick your day and pick your times and most likely your professor that's associated with that. But we're dependent upon the clinical site for what's available to meet the course needs. So, like I said, if you're in Mansfield, largely Guthrie, you have pretty much a captive audience up there. We're at Guthrie, so you're there years 3 and 4. If you're at Bloomsburg, you're largely at Geisinger, but we do have, like I said, we're going to UPMC, we're going to WellSpan, all of our clinical partners to get you those wonderful experiences.
Do nursing students have a priority when scheduling their classes?
The Mansfield campus, we do have them on priority just because of seat availability sometimes for some of those gen eds. Other than that, we follow, the registration process for priority scheduling based on how many credits you have earned, or if you're in the military or if you're an athlete. There's certain criteria that bumps you up, but we do not get special, kind of registration privileges for nurses. I can tell you your nursing courses, we know how many's there, and we definitely have a seat for you. It's the gen eds that get a little competitive. So early registration, if you fall into one of the categories that allows for that, yes, that's an option, but nursing in and of itself is not an early registration.
How do you support students who may struggle academically, particularly in clinicals or nursing theory courses? Are there tutors or additional resources available?
Yes, a lot of times the students will work in groups themselves. We also have people in our simulation lab that will help. We have student workers that will be at Mansfield and also at the Bloomsburg campus for you to go in, kind of on your own time and practice skills, and they can work with you to refine your skills. We have grad students, that might be in our nursing anesthesia program that are working with us. They're already nurses. They come back and help our undergrad. We have the learning communities. We have one specific to nursing. That seems to be a really popular option on the Bloomsburg campus. One of the nursing faculty leads the learning community, and they do a lot of special focus things specific to nursing. We also have student success. We have TRIO, what they call TRIO. We have a lot of different resources that will help you be successful. But a lot of the times the students work among themselves and get in study groups. And like I said, the learning communities to really kind of refine their skills and to get some good study habits. I see one here about clinical times in the evenings. A lot of options we have right now. We have a day evening option because, again, we're dependent upon the sites that are available. And we do have options, which I'll say, I'll call second shift for those of us that know first shift and second shift. It will either be like a modified, like a 12 to 7, or a 3 to 11 or something like that. But we do have typically for most classes, the clinical sites will give us some what we call second shift or evening options.
If I
Dorm
can put
living communities, yeah, that's the learning center. That's a great option. So we do have that. And a lot of the nursing majors will get to know each other and we'll find that they room together. Mansfield, they do room together. They're housed together up at Guthrie. In a dorm, it's a dorm setting essentially. And they still have all the same benefits of being on campus. And maybe Sean, you can speak to that, but they have a lot of, student activities. You're not missing out, put it that way. You get a lot of activities and things that go on, but it's very specific to the healthcare professions up there.
Yeah, the Sarah site has some really nice residence halls. Taylor Donahue is our resident assistant and counselor who will be over there. So she does a lot of programming for our students. In fact, they were just doing a trip to, I want to say, Ricketts Glen State Park with the students who are living over there. And they do a couple of other items too, where they'll do like a movie night in town in Sayre. They'll do a dinner out. They do some really cool things in the local area there. And the residence hall is really nice because you're there with students who are specific for the health science programs that are at the Sayre location. So it is some really nice residence halls over there. There was one here I wanted to make sure. What is the average success rate of graduates passing the NCLEX exam, and how does the program prepare students for licensure?
Great question. We use a product called, there's standardized, what we call standardized testing products. And we are using a product at the baccalaureate level from Elsevier. And Elsevier has this wonderful package that you will purchase when you start in your sophomore year, and all your books. So there's no additional book fees or everything. It's all wrapped into this. But they have questions that are built in not only to that program to help you study as you move along, but we structure all of our tests in what they call NCLEX, kind of ready testing. So all of the tests that you take will actually be in the question format of how to learn how to take an NCLEX style question. So we're preparing you through the standardized testing program that we have called Elsevier. Okay. And that'll be through the entire time that you're with us. And then your testing in and of itself in all your courses are styled to getting you thinking about how NCLEX tests are written and how you will be tested. And then at the very end, before you walk out the door from us, you will take a review course. And I know we have it, like right now we're setting it up. It's usually about a 2-day review course where we have someone come in from the vendor site, and they'll actually do a full prep and get you ready to go for NCLEX testing. Testing can be done as soon as your degree is conferred after graduation. I approve you to test, and students test, pretty much by the end of May, they're starting to early June, right after graduation. And our pass rates right now, we're combined with Mansfield because we're one unit. So we don't break them down by campus. We report them as one baccalaureate code, and we're at just short of 91% for first-time test takers on the baccalaureate side.
Is there any special requirements needed for international students? In terms of, oh, go ahead, Kim, sorry.
No, I was just going to say, I rely on my friends at admissions to help me with that process. So I was going to defer that to Sean anyway.
Yep. What I was going to say is we do have some admission requirements that are for international students where we need to see like a TOEFL score or IELTS scores. If you have transcripts from an international institution, we would need those evaluated through a accredited evaluation agency like WES. And then from there, we would review you just like any other applicant to the university. There is a whole admission process that I'll actually send you a link to so you can look at what our international application process does look like for our students and a contact person for that.
Some really good questions.
There was one in the chat over here. What is the average student to teacher ratio?
I believe I just answered that. For the nursing classes, it's 1 to 60. And the clinical ratio is 1 to 10.
I added, answered some of these other ones in the chat. Okay, let me get that international.
I'm reading through the chat too real quick to see if we touched everything. Sean, I think there's a question on how many students apply. Do you have any statistics on applications? And
so typically we get about 12 to 1,300 applications each year for the nursing program. Just at the Bloomsburg campus alone. In terms of the Mansfield campus, we're getting somewhere around 200. So overarchingly, we're probably right around 1,500 applications for that program. We answered that one. Can nursing students who were admitted to the Honors College live in Columbia Hall instead of the Honors College resident hall? So you can. And the learning community for honors is it's not a requirement to live in the learning community. It is an option for you. If you want to live in that residence hall, when you fill out your housing contract or your housing form, you'll just want to denote that that's the preference of where you want to live. So you don't have to live in Lycoming Hall with the Honors College student in Lycoming. What supplies are needed for clinical?
we usually go over that. In fact, we were just talking about that today. Typically, they'll tell you what they call a nurse pack, what you'll need, but you'll have to buy your uniforms. As I mentioned, the Elsevier product will be your books, if you will, and all the standardized testing and everything that goes along with that portion of your program. But for clinical, you'll buy uniforms. You saw in those pictures here that we had on our slides, those were a lot of examples of our nursing students and the new uniforms that we have. One of the things you'll see on the new uniforms is it now says Briner School of Nursing. We were so proud. Our School of Nursing was named in 2023 and by a wonderful family, Ed and Julie Briner. And so we have the new crest that says Briner School of Nursing. So you'll have the uniform. You'll need to have things like your nursing shoes. We have special shoes that they'll tell you which ones you have to wear. Stethoscope. Usually it's like a pen light. A watch with a second hand is really important, not an Apple Watch. They don't let you have Apple Watches in clinical and in class, by the way. So, those are the things that you'll have to buy. But we tell you what's in that pack or what you need for that clinical. And for those of you, I know it can get expensive, but one of the things that we do is we have a little closet, if you will, of students that have donated things over the years that they help the students coming up behind them. So if you need help, there's supplies there that we can certainly let you have that been donated. And if you ever fall into a hardship, I know we talked about some scholarships and things like that. We do have a Nurses in Need fund for some emergency things through the foundation. There's certain criteria around that, but we really want you to be successful. And but the stuff that you need to buy is minimal. It's more so the uniforms that cost the most, and then the supply packs I'm told are less than $100. At least that's what they were telling me today is what the going price is for that per year.
Can you explain how the program helps students balance the academic workload with the demands on clinical rotations?
How it's set up is typically you're in clinical 2 days a week. And then what we call the didactic or the classroom will be on, like we'll use the example right now. A lot of the classes are Wednesdays and clinicals are either Monday, Tuesday, or Thursday, Friday. So when we schedule classes and when you're taking multiple classes like Patho-Pharm, as I mentioned, and a clinical course together, the faculty will coordinate that you're not having a major exam like on the same day. So we we stagger that. So we're mindful of that when we make big assignments out because we know the demands that it has. But clinical is typically 2 days a week. You can plan on that. Our ASN program actually does 12-hour clinicals. They'll do one 12-hour day and one day of class. We are not there yet. Bloomsburg and Mansfield are still doing traditional clinical days of 8 hours. And they are typically, like I said, on a Monday, Tuesday, or Thursday, Friday. Sometimes that changes. It's very dependent on what our clinical sites have to offer. But we want you to be successful. So as I mentioned, the faculty work together to make sure, if you have big projects or things due, that we don't make them on the same day. Same with your final exams. Like that's very purposeful that we try not to schedule more than one exam. At most, it would ever be two, but it's in nursing, it's typically never more than one exam per day.
What time do classes typically start in the morning?
Okay. Classes can start anywhere between usually about 8 o'clock. That's when you're going to see your first class. Clinical, on the other hand, you need to be on the floor and ready to go most times by 7 o'clock. So it would be just like a typical shift, as if you were working in the hospital or in the clinical setting. They typically start at 7. As I mentioned, we do have some evening shifts with clinical. So when you sign up and register for classes, when you pick those clinical days, you'll know what time that clinical is starting by the time that you register for. So, but typically classes will start at 8 a.m.
Uh, Is there specific housing on the Bloomsburg campus that are for nursing students? So I'm forgetting if do we still have the nursing learning community, Kim?
We do, but there's nothing else other than that. As I mentioned, a lot of students over the years get to know each other and we hear that they turn into roommates and they put in the room request, but the learning community is the only thing that comes to mind.
There's one over in the chat, and I don't know if we caught this one yet or not, Kim, but would it be possible for a nursing student to start school in the spring and still take courses in the correct order?
Typically not. Typically not. Only because everything is so, like I keep going back to the words prescriptive. It's a fall start. Courses are very sequential. We have students that need, after they start in the fall and have to step out for whatever reason, for a medical leave or military or family emergency, we do have students that step out. As I mentioned, when you get to the nursing classes, let's say, adult health 1 is in the fall of your, junior year. It's only offered in the fall of your junior year. So for some reason you have to step out, you have to wait till the next year that it's offered. So to start a semester early, we have not typically done that. We've had students that are typically in the early college, credits, and they come to us with a lot of credits, but they're not starting as a matriculated student in the spring.
I think that's all of them in the Q&A and in the chat. Does anybody have any other questions for Kim and I?
Wow, we must have did a great job, Sean. No more questions.
Oh, one more. Is tuition usually higher for nursing students? So your standard tuition will not be. Our standard tuition is set by the state and our PASHE system. So our tuition itself is $7,716 for PA residents. I'll actually throw in the chat here the link to our cost page on our website so you can see a breakdown of what the total cost would be per year for our students, for both in-state and out-of-state students. That'll give you a breakdown of tuition, fees, as well as housing and dining. Yes, 7,000 a year. Now that's just tuition. That's not your total estimated cost. So let me get you the breakdown of that. So your total estimated cost I'm going to throw the link in the chat here for everybody. This will take you to our financial aid webpage, but you'll see our total estimated costs broken down here. So if you're an in-state student looking to attend one of our campuses, your tuition for the year is going to be around that $7,716. Your fees are going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of around $3,000, and then you'll have housing, your food as well, depending on what you decide to pick from those two areas, and then an estimated. But you can find that right online for our students. Oh, I got a hand raise. Okay. Go ahead, Delilah.
Oh, you're muted.
You're still muted, Delilah. Are you able to unmute yourself? If you want, go ahead and put your question in the chat or the Q&A there, Delilah. I don't know if you are able to unmute. Oh. Are the chances of being admitted into the nursing program the same at either Bloomsburg or Mansfield campuses? So at Bloomsburg, we do have, like I said, a larger applicant pool that we select students from, and we have about 120 seats each year that we can accept into. So it is a bit more competitive at the Bloomsburg campus. So Kim, correct me if you think I'm wrong here, but I think the Mansfield campus does have a little bit of a better chance of students being admitted into that program because we have about 45 seats each year for that program and get, like I said, we get around 200 to 250 applications for that program.
I would agree with that. And as I mentioned, it's the same curriculum,
Yep.
exactly the same. So it's just geography between the two campuses, but it is exactly the same curriculum. So you're getting the same great education at either site.
Question in the chat here. Can students transfer into sophomore year?
As an internal or external transfer? Internal transfers, we look at that in a department that's managed by the department, and it's based on how many seats are available. We do know we have students that switch majors or leave the program or for whatever reason, and we try and keep that seat number at constant. So it is highly competitive to get in as an internal transfer. External transfers are managed through admissions. And based on what you're transferring in, I don't know, Sean, if you want to speak to that, but admissions handles the external transfers coming in. But internal, you can transfer in if you have all the sciences, but it's very much based on seat availability.
And that would be the same for external transfers too. It's based on seat availability and where we're at with our seats. Students who transfer in, of course, we need your application and your official transcripts from your school that you're currently taking classes at. And then we typically would review you sometime around this time of year for the fall semester. Typically, we don't allow our students to transfer into the spring semester. As Kim mentioned earlier, you would be starting in the fall, and it's all due to the sequencing of the coursework. Uh, So yeah, so your total estimated cost for PA residence is around 20K a year, correct? So that is, again, not just tuition, that's fees, that's your housing and your dining. So if you're a transfer student and you have less than 12 credits or 12 credits or less, we will look at your high school transcripts. If you're a transfer student and you have more than 12 credits, we're going to look at just your college classes that you've taken and your credits there. Does that answer your question about the gen ed courses and the prereqs? Okay. Any other questions for us? This has been a good group, Kim. They've got a lot of great questions.
Yes, they have.
You're welcome, Julia.
We appreciate your time. We know there's a lot of options out there. We're very proud of our program. We look forward to you all coming and coming to Commonwealth. Again, two really good options, Mansfield and Bloomsburg campus for the baccalaureate degree. And, you know, I'm on the website. If you know, you'll see a direct link to me for an email. If you go onto the baccalaureate page, please reach out if something comes to mind after we close out tonight. Same with Sean and admissions. We get questions all the time, and no question's a dumb question. We're here to help. So thank you, you know, for your time and interest, and you know, we look forward to seeing you at Commonwealth.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great rest of your evening. And again, feel free to reach out to us anytime you have a question.